This is a very early demo for a game called To Kill a God that is not even publicly available yet. So I wouldn't normally cover too many games this early on, as I like indie games to make the best possible first impression. And this game doesn't even have a settings menu yet. But sometimes a game comes along that just does something that's super interesting to me and captures my imagination. And this game has taken the Path of Exile passive skill tree and turned it into the levels. Each level that you do unlocks a new passive skill on this randomly generated passive skill tree in this roguelike. In order to unlock your first active skill, you select one of these and then you kill monsters and you'll gain that skill. This one is preset, but many of these other nodes you'll notice are empty. The specific rewards you get will determine what actual passives and notables are placed in these slots. This game is heavily Path of Exile inspired, and that'll be pretty obvious to you as we go forwards. But this concept is brilliant. We'll select one of the 4 starting active skill nodes for this only available class at the moment, the Archer class. This is the Lightning Burst skill, and you can see that there are sockets for support gems and everything. A lot of this is going to be immediately familiar to you if you're a Path of Exile player. So if we successfully complete this first level, which is very easy, this first one, we'll gain our first active skill, Lightning Burst. We'll gain access to any linked nodes as we move through the tree, and the way they've designed you to move through the tree is actually really clever too. More on that later. Each node that you take also adds a modifier to all enemies from that point onwards that stacks. So things get harder and harder, and you actually do sometimes want to consider if adding, extra flat lightning damage to the enemies that have a bunch of shock chance already from other nodes is actually a good idea. Route planning and everything is pretty important here, as there are also notables, which are extremely impactful from what I've played so far. And then there are special nodes here, like for example, ones that allow you to create your own skills, socket support gems, gain new active skills, and so on. Even things like refilling your life flask and healing if you don't have another source of healing, as well as going to the hub to visit a vendor, for example. These are all things that you do on the actual passive skill tree as you progress. What a brilliant idea for a roguelike. Let's jump into the first level here. The pixel art is quite gorgeous, and although this is a very early version of the game, it plays quite well. The developer's previous game was kind of like a purely action game, and I think it shows in how the combat feels in this. I like how your character plants their feet for your attacks, which means positioning and when you actually take those attacks, especially with the enemy archers being so dangerous, as you'll see soon. That sort of timing is very important. The combat is simple and good, even in this very early state of the game. So now we get our Lightning Burst skill. And as you can see, we have access to these 2 adjoining nodes we can pick from a path. Once we pick a path, we cannot continue traveling down the other route. So if I take this node, I will not be able to go here later. There is an exception, and that is the Crossroad passives. These Crossroad passives create a point that you can at any point go back to any adjoining nodes. So for example, if I travel from here to here and then get this notable, which is a very good idea, I could then afterwards either go to this attached node to the notable, as usual, continuing my path, or I could go to this node, as it's attached to the Crossroads, or even this skill crafter over here, if I have enough resources to craft a skill, and then continue a path up this way. It's a very clever design that keeps you pushing forwards, but also gives you a couple key checkpoints if you plan your route accordingly. It's very clever that they did this too, because if they had not kind of forced you to continue along your main path, with the exception of these nodes, then it very quickly would exponentially spiral into you having hundreds of different options, right? You can kind of rush the boss early on, but the bosses are pretty hard, or you can travel around the tree for a very long time, but the enemies get harder and harder as you do, so there's a thing to balance there as well. There is zero balance in this state of the game, as is to be expected, but this is just kind of big concepts, I think, here. It's a very good vertical slice that shows, I think, a very brilliant concept executed very well, with just the need for expansion upon this idea. I think it's a really clever concept overall. You know what else is really clever? How Boot.Dev has tackled the challenge of learning back-end web development. That's right, this is the sponsored segment of the video. I've actually been really curious about Boot.Dev myself since I saw another content creator's sponsored segment on it actually. So when they offered to help fund some of my content, I jumped at the opportunity to finally try it for myself. Learning programming languages like Python and Go and getting started in a career in back-end web dev seems pretty daunting, especially starting from scratch. But Boot.Dev's approach is to turn the process into an RPG, something that works very well for my brain, and I hazard a guess some of yours as well. In a confusing and messy and uncertain world, some of us just crave the certainty that video games offer us. A path laid out, quests from helpful NPCs, achievements and level ups to keep us on the path. Being able to just see how you've progressed and what you need to do next. You just don't get that from life very often. Boot.Dev uses this to get you writing a ton of actually working code and to stop you from getting bored during the tricky bits by carefully massaging those crucial reward neurons when it's most needed. I'm personally interested in learning to do things like using Git to back up and share certain parts of my Obsidian notes for things like Path of Exile, for example. I'm planning on cherry picking a few courses like Learn Git to build some practical skills that'll help me with what I do for a living. And you can just do that. You can learn a few skills for a boost by just subscribing for a month or two. Or you can, at your own pace, go from nothing to getting a job in back-end development. It's even got a course for applying for jobs in the field. I don't generally cover sponsorships of things outside of gaming, but I make an exception here for the possibility that a couple of you might gain some new skills and improve your life situation a bit with a new career. And because I think this is such an ideal fit for me, and I'm sure for some of you. It's free to sample and look at all the courses, and you can grab a membership if you like what you see. Use my code ZiggyD Gaming for an extra 25% off your first month or year. Grab a month to learn a specific skill, or a year for a career. Alright, let's go back to the game. Now you'll notice that for these empty passives, it says the rewards is a random item and a random passive. And that's actually really important. I'll show you here in a bit. So firstly, let's use our pre-existing active skill, just bind that to right mouse button, which this is kind of like a multi-projectile shocking skill. And you'll see that shock adds extra lightning damage when you hit the enemy based on kind of like, I believe, the amount of shock. So it's a pretty short-lived buff, but if you can follow up with another attack afterwards, you can get a lot of extra damage. And there is shotgunning on the projectiles here. The devs will probably have to be pretty careful about how they balance shotgunning moving forwards. You get one free reroll on each item and the passive choice. So your first thing is that you can choose from these various items that are generated up here, and there's some very impactful things you can take as well. And actual support gems, but do keep in mind that the support gems can only be socketed when you visit a node that has the support gem socketing feature, so you actually have to go somewhere to do that. In the current state of the game, I think these are a little bit limited. I'd like to be able to support skills a little more frequently, so maybe making that more accessible at more times would be nice. Here we have some gloves with some implicit attack damage and armor. There is armor, evasion, and energy shield. Again, very Path of Exile inspired. There's also a silver belt with some crit and things like that. But I do kind of like to dig early rerolls for more impactful upgrades than this. We actually got something that's a very good aspirational item for us here. This body armor has health regeneration. Health is quite a limited resource in this. I do actually question long-term whether the devs should include things like health regeneration or make it potentially even more limited. Perhaps having health recover only in certain scenarios, like a bit of health recovered each level, for example, or very small amounts of health on kill. But nonetheless, in the current state of the game, me getting some health regeneration, even if it's going to take me a bit of strength stacking to do so, that's very impactful. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. And then we get to pick from these minor nodes here. So we can get increased strength. That might actually be enough for us to equip that almost immediately. We can also reroll and try and go other things. I'll get the increased strength. It'll make it a little bit easier to stack strength for that item. It might not be quite enough. We have 10 available attribute points here that we can spend between strength, dexterity, and intelligence in this. So I'll go ahead and put 5. No, not even. The 3% increased is actually giving us an extra point. So I'll go to 20, which goes up to 21 and allows us to equip that body armor, giving us health regen from the first node. So this is already starting off to be a very good run here. I'll put a couple points into intelligence. That's going to give us a lot of extra mana, and then the rest is going into dexterity. For such an early version of the game, there's actually a pretty nice layout of stats here that are quite informative in how they scale and what they actually do. So it does have a good idea as to properly communicating this information. So now you can see that increased strength in that node that we took. And when we get to the notable, we'll actually pick a notable in the same fashion from a selection of 6 different passives. So we could go straight to the notable here, but if I don't plan on traveling through this node in the future, because you can't back travel, I could instead go up this way, but that gives me an extra node first before we get to the more difficult notable fight. But given that health regen we just got, I don't think that'll be necessary, and it does cut off a potential other path. Like if, for example, I wanted to come and get this notable over here in the future, that would have us travel this way. So it might be good to leave this one open to travel from the Crossroads in the future. Now, as you can see, the world modifiers here are stacking up, and we gave enemies increased attack speed and lightning damage. Actually, some somewhat dangerous starting modifiers, mostly the lightning damage. That gives them potential to start shocking me in the future, which is a bit dangerous. We'll go to the Crossroads now and do our fight here. Our health regen, they're very impactful in recovering that health, because normally you are limited in health flasks and they don't recover on kill. It seems like the mana flask recovers over time or on kill, but not the health flask. You need to actually rest. And to do that, you actually sacrifice a passive, which is not too big a sacrifice on the minor nodes, but it's not something you want to do if you can avoid it. So having some sort of health recovery is really impactful here, obviously. So for example, I could select rest here and I would miss both the item and the stat. If the items aren't very good and you can roll to check first, then that's not so bad. And just losing one of these is not too bad if you really do need to recover those potions. And sometimes that is necessary early on until you can get some nice health recovery. Again, I think the devs long-term will want to think about how they balance health recovery a bit more, because this game seems to thrive on very limited, ruthless-esque health recovery. I think things like items that, for example, generate life flask charges on kill or increase that or play with that concept to give you a way to get some healing, but it's still kind of limited into connected in a way to the content you're actually facing. Let's take a look at the items we have access to here. Little crit chance belt is not too impactful. Some of these will take a fair bit of investment to equip. I quite like how the items actually have some pretty hefty stat requirements that you need to consider pretty strongly, but are also very impactful. So for example, this one, mana regeneration here is pretty impactful. It's not necessarily the best way to manage mana, but it is very good compared to not having any way of doing it. It's otherwise not a very good item for us with just cold and fire damage, and our current skill is lightning damage, so our lightning burst skill has full lightning conversion. So we could take this one and build towards it by stacking some more intelligence. Pretty good solution. Just having something to solve mana is quite good, but I'm very tempted to dig for something else, because although this item's good, there could be more items in here. They could even be good. Let's see. The 6 mana regen for a ring there, and that actually requires only 5 intelligence, which is 1 level worth of intelligence, which I could get right away. So there's actually a very good start in terms of basic resource management, so I'll take that. We can get increased strength, dexterity. The impacts of those are actually pretty decent. I quite like the scaling here. Fire damage is not very good, but we might see if I can get something a little more appropriate. Cold, poison, and evasion. No, I probably would have been better off taking the dexterity scaling. I think might have been the better option there, but the ring is a very good outcome either way. So I just need 5 intelligence to equip that ring, which it's got some health on it, but mostly it's that implicit for the mana regeneration is a big deal there. I think the mana regeneration is probably a little bit overtuned as well. Just this alone is going to probably cover my skill usage pretty effectively, given that the mana cost of the skill is 11, so I can use this every 2 seconds, less than 2 seconds pretty much, which is, I think in this game, very strong already. You can get mana on hit later, that's even more powerful though. I don't think mana regeneration should be as limited as health regeneration, but it should probably be a little less powerful than this, at least early game. But again, I don't think there's too much point in harping on balance in such an early version of the game. But the concepts of resource management, I think in this design of this game, because it's a roguelike about moving through this procedurally generated passive tree that you're building over time, I think resource management is so crucial here, especially because it's got that concept of sacrificing a passive to rest. I actually wonder if they have an idea for if you, for example, were to sacrifice a notable, maybe you'd get something really powerful instead. Because the notables themselves are very good, and the idea of sacrificing a notable for just a regular rest doesn't really make much sense, but sacrificing it for something better, maybe you can rest and enhance something. Like quite often games that are like Slay the Spire have the ability to use a campfire to improve a card, for example. So maybe something like that. Let's move into the notable. If we get a good notable, a nice lightning shock notable, for example, that will be very good. These notable fights tend to be a little harder, and as we see, we're starting to encounter some archers here. And the archers in this game are really good. Like, they're quite deadly. They kind of fire quite quickly, and they lead the target quite well. But their biggest weakness is the fact that they like to find kind of specific places to stand before they start attacking. So often you can kind of catch them before they start attacking like this. But once they do plant their feet and pick a location like this, dodging them can be a little work, actually. They're quite dangerous, more so than I'm used to archers being in games like this, but I kind of like it. You're very much thinking about how you're managing that threat. I'm playing not very ideally here and taking a lot of damage. That mana recovery is doing nicely. I can use my mana flask a little bit more here because it does recover over time. It's not quite as limited. I did take a bit of damage there, but we can stall a little bit here while we wait for our health regen. And that's one of the reasons why I think health regen is not a very good idea in a game design like this, because it does encourage behavior like this where you just kind of stall. So generally I think these sorts of games you don't really want to include that. If it was limited instead to like the action of killing this to recover like say a health flask charge, that would make more sense. We have a bow offer here. We need a little bit more dexterity for it, but that's going to happen anyway. And that's a pretty good little damage increase there. I do want to start picking up some support gems if I can. But I think we will take the bow, as that's probably more impactful early on here. This one has mana regen. You'd actually be tempted, if you hadn't got a mana regen item already, to take this just for the mana regen. The crit actually still works, but obviously not the spell damage, as we're not using spells. It'd be cool if long term they add things that like maybe an archer can do a little bit of spell sort of stuff. There are trigger supports in this game. So the idea of like having, say, a cast on crit sort of thing for a bow character would allow you to integrate some spells and still make use of this in kind of like a less impactful way than if you were actually a dedicated spellcaster. Otherwise, we've got some fire damage stuff here, which is not super useful for us. We're going to reroll, hoping for lightning. We got cold and spell and fire again. So I got really unlucky that time. That said, this does have weapon fire damage, so we could go the fire damage scaling and the burn, or just get the extra mana regen. To be honest, I'll probably just get the mana regen and crit. That's pretty good as it is. We'll need the extra 5 dexterity for our bow, and that'll be a pretty substantial increase in damage there. 17 to 21 fizz, and 2 to 7 extra fire is quite good, as well as increased base crit. If we get one more level and put 5 points into dexterity, we can take the active skill throw poison flask, which could be a good thing to set up as a trigger, perhaps. There's the skill enhancer here that allows us to equip support gems, but we'd ideally want to equip some, like select some support gems before that point. Another strategy could be to take this alternate route through this utility passive here and out to this skill enhancer. And that will give us the option of coming around this way and then visiting another skill enhancer. We hopefully want to pick up a couple passives, support gems even, in that time. There's again even another option here. Like if we go that way, that would lock off the option of going down this way and getting another offensive notable here, as well as a skill crafter, which can actually be used to craft support gems. So perhaps this way into the skill crafter, craft a support gem, take this route here, and then we can grab the utility node. We want to hit the boss after, you know, maybe 10 or 20 passives. The longer we wait, the easier the boss is going to get, but the harder and harder the regular fights are going to get in the interim. So I think I like the idea of coming around this way. That should be about right. Gotta be a little careful because some of these archers will be like firing right away if they're pretty far away from us there. Those little shards we're picking up are the game's currency system effectively. You can use them to buy things from the shop, but you can also use them to craft gems too. As you can see, those archers are quite scary, right? The only problem currently with the currency pickups is that you have to pick them up before this area cleared comes up. Otherwise you don't get them, it seems. Unless they're auto picking up, I'm not noticing. I don't necessarily dislike that idea. I don't love it, but it is a possible design route of having it be that you have to grab them in combat or not get them. That's kind of like the It's kind of the Gloomhaven approach to things. But I know that's not everyone's favorite mechanic. But the annoying thing is when you kill the final enemy and then the loot drops and you can't pick it up because the end screen has appeared. It's like a cardinal sin of game dev when you can't loot the boss because the cutscene starts. It's kind of like that. Fizz to cold. Converts Fizz into cold damage. Requires the physical tag. I don't believe that would work with this skill because it's tagged as lightning and already has lightning conversion built into it, so you'd need a separate physical skill for that one. So that wouldn't do too much for us. There's a huge mana regen ring there. But we just got the 2 sets of mana regen, so we're pretty good on mana regen for now. Increased lightning damage support is very good though. This is huge. 65% lightning scaling, and the 15% doesn't actually seem to increase mana cost as well, that one. We don't need too many more stat requirements just yet. I think we can take the accuracy. Dexterity gives attack speed, evasion, and crit hit multi, but not accuracy. So accuracy is something you have to consider some specific investment in. We're at 95% here, but some enemies, like for example the boss, will be a bit more evasive. I know we did need some more dexterity down the line, so we'll go ahead and grab that now. So again, we can't use the lightning damage support here. We have to go to a specific node for that, which you can plan for, which is not a bad way of approaching it, but I think I'd like this to be a little bit more, you can interact with this a little bit more often. Maybe the idea that you could, anytime you rest, you could socket support gems would be nice. Anyway, just spitballing concepts here. Let's go down this way and head towards this other offensive notable. I am very curious on the idea of getting the utility though. That might be better. We'll decide as we go. I have to consider the nodes I'm giving enemies too, actually. Try and go those archers first. I quite like this ability. It's very powerful at close range, especially. Because it's multi-hitting, you're effectively shocking them and then hitting them again and getting extra shock damage. As you can see, as we go, more and more enemies are getting implemented, including these like flask throwers. I kind of love that enemy design. The art's really good, actually, in general. I think like the animations and everything look really, really awesome. Way better than I expect for this early on. Can use that mana flask. I don't have like infinite mana right now. It's a bit too slow for that. There we go. Yeah, look, I can't get the intelligence shard. Reduced attack cooldown support. This one's tagged as sword, so I think this is just kind of like a placeholder and isn't currently working. Energy shield is quite nice to have as a, if you don't have any health healing, have as an overshield that can recover if you don't take damage for a while. It works exactly as you'd expect as a PoE player. We want to consider any slots we don't have gear for yet. Hat, gloves, boots, relic, belt, another ring and an amulet. I guess we'll get the hat because it's better than nothing. If we needed a rest, this would probably be a good one to rest on. A little bit of move speed might be alright. It's not a lot, but even just having a little bit makes a pretty big difference here. Let's go this way. Woo! There's a few archers there. A straight up firing squad over there. Try and be a little aggressive to take them out early there if we can. And the flask throwers, as they tend to create like a lot of zoning effects as these linger for quite a while. And they chill and deal a fair bit of damage, those fields of ice from their ice flasks that they're throwing. So killing them early on is not a bad idea. Oof, that's a solid hit. I like how these guys are pretty easy to avoid, but if you do like get greedy with grabbing some currency like I just did, they do actually do a lot of damage, if you don't have any armor, that is. We actually got an exotic here, which is kind of like, these seem to be specific stats, although the rolls can vary. So this one here is increased armor with 38 flat armor, which is very impactful, but I actually had one of these drop with like 80 armor once, so that scaled up to like 90 something armor, and it was extremely powerful. I had like 80% mitigation from the enemies of my level. There's Fizz to Fire. I think we're going to take that. It does require 2 more levels of 23 strength, but if I don't get another very impactful amulet, that is something strong to build for. That would make me nearly immune to physical damage, so it's trading off a slightly better hat or, you know, whatever we could reroll into, but I think that's a decent trade-off. But we do have a goal to shoot for now, but I can progress pretty quickly here, and we do have a little bit of strength scaling that will help. So we're actually only not too far off now. Another 10 points would maybe get us there, especially if we get another 3% scaling. Oh, I needed int. My low starting health for this next is a little dangerous. I should probably use my potion as soon as I get in, just to be safe. All right, just checking the enemy mods, seeing if things are getting really sketchy there. try and like be moving right away here and get those flask throwers or archers as soon as we can. So you can see the number of enemies is growing pretty quickly. You get pretty good pack density as you go here. You can push the archers, that can kind of like encourage them to not fire, it seems. Because they like to, I think, get far enough away from you before they start firing. I'm getting sniped by an archer across the field here. Let's shotgun you. And the one over here. I think these devs are going to want to be very careful about multiple projectiles and shotgunning. The Path of Exile devs had to learn that the hard way. It's really hard to balance skills when extra projectiles effectively add as a big damage multiplier. So here is an option for Leech, which is, I think, way too strong. So we're definitely going to take that. That's very powerful. And then what do we have? A ring here that we could just equip next time we level for attack speed. I need one more level to get that. We need 1 intelligence to equip our hat. And if we stack all strength, we'll get a bit closer to our amulet. So here is a skill crafter. We'll be able to craft something hopefully useful for lightning burst or an alternate skill. Right now I have increased lightning damage support, so I have one thing I can socket there. And I have maybe enough currency here to craft a skill because that's what it takes. There's not a fight for these utility nodes like this. We go straight into this crafting menu to craft a skill. This is a cute little idea. But the way you lay out your currency is what you actually craft. So quite good with this one would be, for example, the skill echo support, which takes a blues in those slots and then a green over here and then a red down here. But I don't have enough blues for that. So we can't do that one. Getting a trigger support for a future skill would be interesting. I could craft trigger skill on critical damage support, for example. That could be kind of cool. I'll put 3 red in there, 2 green here, and then blue. There's actually a chance of failure here. Some of them are a little higher. Some of the more powerful kind of like active skills, for example, I believe. I do have to say, with the way that it currently is, I've done most of my runs with just one skill, but it does seem like there's potential to get a second skill and set it up as a trigger skill like this. We were successful in crafting our trigger support, so now I could get a secondary skill and try and trigger it on crit, which means we probably want to stack some crit. I could get something like Spectral Shot here, for example. I needed 14 int to actually go that way. Interesting. We might have to go this way first. I mean, there's some good stuff over there. Potentially sidetracked here from my quest of going to the boss. But we are getting some powerful things. In the interest of video length, I will probably not grind too long on this run and instead take a crack at the boss. The boss fights so far that I've done have been swift and deadly on one side or the other. There's going to be some things for them to consider long term, I think, in terms of like how the boss design works and kind of if you're forced to take on a boss at a certain point or encouraged to take them on at a certain point. Right now, there's already some good incentive to like push the boss earlier if the fights are getting harder, but the boss itself seems to get easier the longer you do delay. But there is some sort of balancing act there, which is kind of clever. Here we have a legendary leather belt, a 33% increase in health about. It's got some attributes that are not very useful for us. As far as I can tell, the legendaries are kind of like higher stat rolls but randomized, whereas the exotic, which were the unique kind of colored ones, are the handcrafted items. Lightning damage is good here. Also increased health with this one that we just got. But I could also start scaling crit too. I might start scaling crit. I'm feeling pretty strong. There's our belt, and we can equip our other ring now that we've leveled up. This one's not too impactful, but it's a nice little placeholder for now. I want to try and push to that 9 strength required for the crown. The sovereign crown. Utility passive or fireball. We can actually go both ways. I like that. There's also 2 utility passives almost back to back here. I'll heal just to be safe. To restore my flask charges, though, at some point, if I want it for the boss, for example, I will have to rest at a node. So, at some point, we'll find a small node where that's like a valid option, I think. Let's take out this guy. And the archer if we can. I think I need a bit more accuracy. I'm seeing a few misses pop up here and there. Let's grab these bits of currency while we chip away at the pack. And end. Nice. There we go. Can finish him off now. Whoa, the miss! That miss cost me a little bit there. A badly timed miss. Increased range attack speed support. 35% increased attack speed. Not bad. I don't think we have any boots yet. How good are these? More armor while stationary boots. We have a support we already want to link to lightning burst. And we have a trigger for another one. You can link multiple supports at the same time, but there's a chance of failure the more you tried to add. And that actually consumes them. So it's kind of safest at the moment to link just one gem at a time, ideally. But we do have multiple potential linking sites. Reduced mana cost, increased accuracy. Increased accuracy crit. Oh, dex move speed evasion. Oh, these are all really good options. We do need the crit and accuracy. Extra move speed would be a big deal here though. And we probably will need some more dexterity down the line to equip better bows and things too. I think I am going to re-roll and see what else we can dig up. Oh, I should have looked at the bow too, maybe. Oh, great. I guess we'll take the chest then. Looks like the first round of items were actually better. That's what gambling does in the end. All right, we can get our strength now. And now we equip that, which takes our armor from, 18% damage mitigation to an estimated 68 against our kind of average enemy at the moment. Pretty good increase right there. All right, let's head over towards this other utility node here. There's a little bit of a problem with the UI here where you can't like read this once it gets too long. So we don't really know what these ones are. Something about poison damage. Sort of very early demo stuff that will be easily fixed in the future, I'm sure. Let's hunt those archers down. This concept expanded out and refined could be something that I get very hooked on. It's such a brilliant design. Like, this would work really well as like obviously as a roguelike like this, but also as like, imagine if PoE Mobile still needed a concept. I mean, they've already got their design down for that game, but it would work pretty well for that sort of a design as well, I think. Of like a purely kind of mapping based game. There's some poison scaling amulet there. Another chest, fizz to lightning support. That's conversion. That actually allows you to change a fizz skill to a lightning. So that could work if we wanted a second lightning skill to scale better. I'll reroll. There's another hat with very high intelligence requirement. Here's a higher tier bow with, that's very good random stats. We don't have boots yet. Let's maybe pick up the boots for the movement speed if nothing else. We need dexterity for some things down the line. I think we'll take that. Now boots are equipped there with a bit of extra movement speed. I'll go more dexterity for now as we're likely going to need more of that for bigger bows and still our chest armor. And then we've got this utility node over here as well. I think the sound design of the game is in a pretty good state right off the bat as well. Pretty good presentation overall, apart from the UI, which feels a little bit placeholder, especially like this on-screen one here. Hold still, you. Hold still. Let's pick up the rest of those currencies and blast that pack. That's very satisfying. Huge health scaling amulet, but we already got that big armor scaling amulet, so I guess with our health recovery being quite good, the added maximum health is maybe slightly better. What's this other one? Reduced to cost. That would make our skill extremely spammable. Health gained on kill, energy shield gained on kill, also very good. Damage dealt leeches mana. Did we get leech earlier? I can't quite recall, and that's something I'd like to see in the future as a feature, is the ability to pop up the passive tree here, to be able to look at your current passives and be like, oh, do I have that? You can get your inventory to see your stats at least, but it's trying to remember like, oh, was there a thing to socket this if I take this now, you know, a couple nodes away? I can't remember. I think the health and energy shield gain on kills probably a little better. Tough call. Doesn't help in the boss down the line though. The leech should be really good if I didn't already have a leech. I feel like I did get leech, but I actually don't remember if I got it or not. I have a terrible memory. Let's just, for funds then, since these are all the very good options and I should definitely take one of these, let's re-roll and see what other utility things you can get. Maximum endurance charges. Don't know how you generate endurance charges yet. So probably not going to be all that good for us. Dexterity, move speed, and evasion. Let's just take that one. Alright, that should be enough dexterity to equip our chest armor there. Oh wait, I forgot we already had a chest armor. What? Am I blind? We're not going to lose our 2 health regeneration chest. I completely forgot about that. Let's go ahead and for the moment get a little bit more intelligence, just to be ready for any potential items that crop up with that. And we'll go to this passive node and then come back to the skill crafter and go that way, I think. So we can get the defensive notable as well, because I don't think we've gotten any of the defensive notables yet. That eye icon means I'm being targeted by one of the elites there. So there's a champion now. You start seeing yellow health bar champions like this. So that's like a blue mob, so I'm wondering if there's also like a yellow mob you can encounter down the line as well. That's AoE clear. Piercing through the packs with this skill is very satisfying. Oof. Okay, we're pretty tanky. Our armor absorbed most of the damage of that hit. They have a little bit of added elemental, which made it through. But ultimately, they did like almost no physical damage. Let's finish that one off. Got ourselves a lot of currency there too. And that one. Very nice. So there are items like this that have added projectiles. I definitely think these are too strong. Our current belt is health and otherwise not that good. I think we'll probably take that because 1 extra projectile is huge. And we might just take some more increased dexterity, I think. But mostly I'm interested in that belt, but we just need 1 more level for that one. We'll see what we get from this defensive notable, and we have another skill enhancer here, so we can go and socket those now. Or we could even do the skill man, there's so many skill enhancers here. We can actually socket multiple things. So we'll go to 1 skill enhancer now. So we take the lightning burst and put it here. And we can put in multiples, so we have increased lightning damage and we have the trigger, but we wouldn't want to do this, but I'll just show you. As you can see, it goes down to 80%. I can't actually do... Oh, the reduced attack mana I forgot has got the sword tags. I don't think this one's intended for this skill. Or maybe it's a placeholder or a kind of unfinished gem. So we'll need to get that increased lightning damage support on there. Which that alone is a huge increase. It does actually show the new kind of like damage values as well. So you can only do 1 craft per node there, in case that was unclear. Let's go ahead and grab the offensive notable here. Quite a group of archers up here, it looks like. Yeah, we didn't end up getting the mana leech in the end. I was wondering if I had gotten some already. Would have been probably good to take something like that, because that allows you to just spam that skill like crazy. Let's take that champion out there. Things get pretty hectic when you've got these potion throwers and archers and elite archers on all sides like that. Positioning and movement here is pretty important. I quite like it. All right, there's a higher base crit, higher DPS bow there that we'll take. And since we're not quite breaking even on mana, I'll take the crit chance and mana regen again. Crit chance is 12% now. With the multi-hitting of lightning burst, we probably could get a secondary skill and socket it up, but we need to actually go get a secondary skill first. We can equip our +1 projectile hunter's belt now as well, so we're going to sacrifice a lot of life for that, but it's a huge increase in damage. So we had a skill crafter over here, but once we go to the skill crafter, we have to commit to going to the boss, so that's not that helpful for us right now. I could alternatively take the spectral shot skill, but I can't do that until I get some more intelligence, which I forgot about. So let's go through this notable defense node now, as that's kind of maybe the current best option for us. We have a new type of elite over there, a big old guy with a sword. These do like a nasty dashing ability like that. And they have a pretty hefty melee attack. Although with our current and very high armor, we'd probably actually be able to tank them pretty well. But we don't necessarily need to test that. Oh yeah, well, I did anyway. I took about 40-50 damage. But with our healing, that's not too bad. They're pretty tanky at range like that. I think they probably have good armor too. But we can get in close with the shock skill in between their attacks and do a fair bit of lightning damage there. Ooh, okay, okay. Getting combo struck there. We might want to deal with this guy, so we're not getting zoned by that as well. Take out the archer and then we can focus. Nasty combos there with some pretty fast follow-ups before they kind of like pause for a break. See that extra projectile there, kind of effectively doubling our damage of our main attack, right? It's pretty strong. I still don't have any gloves, so I'll take some increased attack damage gloves here. Yeah, so this one is super overpowered. I'm obviously going to take this. 5 health gain on hitting an enemy is way too powerful. So we're definitely going to take that one and be completely broken here. That might be able to be enough for us to cruise to the boss. I think that plus the armor we have might be enough for us to kind of even potentially face tank the boss. Right now I don't have a useful support to give to my main skill. Yeah, I think the choice is going to have to be to effectively waste one of these skill enhancers. But that's okay. That's not that big a deal in the end. This one, unless there's a really good offer on here, we might want to consider restoring some life flask charges. We still have one use of it. That'll probably be okay, actually. We have some exploding mobs there as well. Nice visual warning on that, though. But there's a nice kind of like enemy variety even at this very early point in the game as like more and more enemies get added as we go further and further. I was kind of surprised actually with that, in addition to kind of the variants from the champions as well. Ow. We got to move in close with this skill because of the shotgunning, but also it does have a limited range to it. Yeah, there's a bit of an eclectic mix of stuff on this ring, but it's going to be an upgrade for us. No, I don't think we need to rest. I was kind of hoping for a support gem though, but no support gem for us. Trade this attack speed projectile one off for the higher version legendary there. Defensive notable time. Ooh, new enemy type. These like storm call spellcasters. Ouch, I had to use that life flask. Kind of got myself backed into a bad position there. That storm call kind of spellcaster has a bit of a scary kind of like lightning strike ability there, but they also have like a little spark nova that they shoot out as well, which these sparks travel for quite a distance in a somewhat like little wavy patterns, which can be easy to miss in the fray of things to chip away at your health a little bit. The challenge ramping of the enemy mobs is quite good at the moment. This guy's very... Oh, I think he has an energy shield, it looks like. Yeah, we got to wear down that energy shield, which means we need to like, stay on top of them. I think their actual health's not too high once we do get through that energy shield, though. Our attack speed's getting pretty high now if we default attack spam. Our DPS is probably actually pretty good there. We could sustain more mana, we could actually kind of blast with our lightning strike, too. Not bad, not bad. There's a nice bow there. Ooh. And it's actually just the poison DPS that's kind of the extra bit there, or maybe the attacks per second. Yeah, no, it looks like it's mostly just the poison kind of contributing to the damage. So it might not actually be that much better than it looks like. Yeah, I think we might just keep the higher base crit one that we have right now. Especially if I want to do some custom crit shenanigans, which might mean we can push for a support gem. It's a fire damage support. Not that useful for us, unfortunately. I'll take it depending on what skill we get. I might just get the increased max health here. This is like increased life per second with leech, so faster leech, but yeah, obviously that doesn't grant you the leech though. But even just the health alone there's nice. I might come and get this lightning arrow skill through the passive Crossroads here. I definitely think we're going to start getting to a point where some of these encounters are getting very dangerous though, as I continue delaying before going to the boss. Yeah, it's starting to get a little hectic in here. Thankfully, our life gain on hit is doing a lot of work for us now on the survivability front. Let's take out the rest of the ads, then we can first focus on that spellcaster. They're a little hard to stay on top of while there's other enemies around in order to take down their energy shields. Alright, hold still, you. Hold still. running rings around me. This one's pretty meh. I might use this one to rest to recover my life flasks so that I've got that instant healing when I need it. There's like a skill crafter all the way up here, but I don't know how I want to like, how long I want to delay doing that. Let's go get this lightning nut skill right now. It'll synergize nicely with any lightning scale that we have. Oh, we don't have a ton of lightning scaling. There we go, handling pretty nicely there. Gotta be careful if we get shocked. I don't have any shock mitigation currently. This is a lot of extra damage, especially if we're getting shotgunned by the enemy. Lightning arrow skill. Fires a lightning charged arrow that chains to one nearby enemy, converts all fizz to lightning. If that kind of base single target is probably not going to be better compared to the shotgunning on the other skill. This seems like the skill I would trigger if anything. But we do have that trigger on critical damage support, which could be quite nice there. I'll just do a random skill enhancer here, and we'll link the lightning arrow skill to the trigger on critical damage support. So it's got a pretty low chance of being triggerable. But I mean, a free extra skill cast when we crit is not bad, especially with our extra projectiles. We're going to be critting fairly often there, potentially. I think we're strong enough that we can start pushing towards the boss now. Take out those archers. Getting point blank with the 2 projectiles is good. The drawback of getting an extra projectile is that at long distances, you actually tend to miss a little bit as your arrows go either side of them. That corrects again with 3 projectiles. It's the same in Path of Exile. You've never done that before. A single extra projectile could be a little awkward with like a single skill, like puncture or something. There you, buddy. The armor's looking very good against them. Ooh, another exotic here. Area of effect attack damage. 100% chance to resist bleeding. Added chance to cause bleeding when dealing physical damage. I think our current gloves are not that good. I'm gonna take those then, aren't I? Mana gain on hit with enemies. Ooh, that'll let me just spam my skill like crazy. Very nice. I'm gonna get attack speed because that makes it even better. Alright, I think we're getting pretty strong. Let's go try and take on that boss. As you can see with that mana gain on hit now, I can just spam that skill like crazy, and with the life gain on hit we have as well, and actually face tank a lot of stuff. Just have to be a little careful of status elements like shock or indeed getting frozen. I don't know what boss we're going to be facing. I don't know if there's a variety in the game currently. But we should probably be able to face tank most of them unless they have some nasty statuses. We don't want to be getting hit by those chilled. That would be one of the things that could kill me the most right now. Or getting shotgunned by sparks could be pretty bad. But as you can see, we've become quite the machine now. There's an added projectile amulet. Ooh, that would sacrifice a huge amount of armor and face tanking potential though, but an added projectile is obviously huge. Tough decision on that one. I'll get max health, makes sense with our recovery now. It also has increased accuracy. I think it will be worth the trade-off, honestly. It's a lot of fizz damage reduction lost though. From 73 to 43. Yeah, that might be worth it. Oh, that AoE clear. So juicy. I don't really need to worry about the currency because I don't think we're going to be hitting a vendor or anything before the boss at this point. Getting stunned by that guy's attacks a little bit. Have to be a little careful there. Some of these rings have added flat crit like this, which is not bad. I don't know if we'll be able to use it. We probably have enough mana now. We could drop the mana regen rings. How's my accuracy? Because we want to make sure that accuracy is as high as possible. Chance is around 100. Probably fine even against the boss. Yeah, I'm going to drop the mana regen ring for the crit chance because I think we have enough mana recovery now. And that gets our crit chance up to 17%. Still pretty low, but maybe enough to trigger that skill a little bit. The screen shake is extreme. Like I said, this is such an early version of the game. There's no settings menu right now. Obviously, we're going to need a way to tone that down. I actually have health gain on hit now. I could drop the 2 health regen. It's not doing that much anymore. That's 24 crit chance. Armor goes down to very little now. Whoa. Tough decision. Right before the boss. I could hit the defensive node just before the boss, though. Totally going to do that. It's situated there just to give us a last second little boost in defense to make up for my greed here. Yeah, we're definitely getting crits now. The chance on crit of scoring the trigger is pretty low, so we're probably only triggering like every couple attacks, but it's free extra damage at this point. It's got a fun skill and support gem system, but it's just a little too hard to interact with at the moment. So I'd like to see that in later versions of this game being a bit more easy to interact with more frequently. I think the added fizz on these, 53 to 65, is a typo. Because when I used this before, it didn't actually seem to do anything. The increased physical damage did work, though. One last defensive node, then it's boss time. Don't be surprised if I manage to kind of face tank with recovery the boss, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. It'll just be about whether we hit that point, I think. That's going to be my strategy, is going to be all or nothing, right on their face. See if I can face tank them or not. Ooh. Thankfully, evade does work on spells in this game as well. So I did evade one of those hits. Nice. Another 5 health gain on hit with 20% health. That's going to do it, I think. Alright, we never ended up finding a relic, but I think I've only really seen kind of unique relics. Some of the ones that I did see were very strong, though. There's one that was like 2 additional projectiles for your basic attack or something. Face a demigod and test your might. So the game's called To Kill a God, so this wouldn't even qualify, as they're only a demigod. But I guess this is like, maybe at some point you'll have to kill like multiple guardians to then access the actual boss. So it's kind of, that's what it says to me. Like kill several demigods and then you might be able to access the actual god to fight them to kind of beat the game. But in this current version of the game, it's just the demigod as our only option. They have a nasty lightning shotgunning skill and these ghosts here, which we want to get in close to them to do our shotgunning. I accidentally clicked off screen, sorry. We got to get in close to do our shotgunning, but we might want to try and time it right between like one of these barraging skills here. Okay. Let's see who wins. I got this. Mate, yes. I think we're getting some stuns on them too, and some very nice shock and damage and recovery there. Our evasion looks like it's enough to evade most of their hits. And they're not really getting any big statuses on me, and if they do, it's going to be shocks, so I think we got it covered. Yeah, nice. Going hard on it was the go. And look, I picked up a strength stat off them. Yay! Very good. I don't know why it says the run duration was 17 hours. That's not right. I think it might be counting my total time in the game or something. That was good fun. Obviously, again, a very early version of the game, but I think it does an extremely good job of showing some very, very fun and interesting concepts here that I'd love to see expanded upon. I think you like more options when you rest, like if you skip a notable to rest, maybe giving you several options of either visiting, you know, the hub or the support gem socketing or something like that could be a good idea, just to give a bit more flexibility in that. And that would just let you engage in those mechanics a little bit more, I think. But it's such a cool concept and I can't wait to see more of it. So a bit of backstory on the developers, Glitch Factory, as I've done a bit of a look into them. They had launched a Kickstarter for the game, but the dates that they put for the Kickstarter were based on when they were originally believing Steam Next Fest would be, which the dates ended up being different. So they kind of like missed the boat on that. And it hasn't gotten really as much attention as they were hoping for, as Next Fest is such a huge deal for indies. And honestly, Kickstarter is really hard these days. So they have said that they're planning on restarting the Kickstarter. So if that happens soon, I'll put the link in the description. They have a previous game. It is an action. It's said to be an action RPG, but it seems to be kind of like an action exploration, you know, like I guess Zelda-esque style game, which looks really gorgeous and has a free demo available you can check out. It has suffered from some mixed reviews due to the initial launch's combat being very parry focused and that having a lot of issues with not resonating with some players, as well as the fact that it doesn't, I don't think, have kind of like RPG systems like level ups and things like that. Whereas it's more of that action adventure style game. So some people love it and other people did not love it. And as such, it got mixed reviews. They did, however, show that through this, my research on this, I saw how they've been quite good at responding to feedback, taking in even recent feedback to make more changes, but also putting out a huge update to the game that overhauled combat substantially based on a lot of that feedback that they got. Unfortunately, the curse for an indie developer with a game that gets only 100 reviews is that it can be difficult to recover from mixed reviews, as even if you get very positive reviews from them, it's not kind of enough to trigger moving out of that mixed review range, which does seem to be the case. A lot more of the positive reviews now are very good, and a lot of the discussions on previous negative reviews have people saying like they put out a big update that's really good now and it's improved a lot of the things you talked about. Like this update they put out has like lots of specifics about things they've changed. So it's probably still the case that the game was still not kind of designed in a way that resonated with everyone. But their responsiveness to feedback seems to be the biggest thing here. There was some mention of some financial difficulties for them, and I've been talking to the developer and learning a little bit more about their studio. And although they have some expanded staff that can work on the game together, it seems like it's mostly just two of them, two core developers that are working primarily on To Kill a God. So even if a Kickstarter doesn't work out, they plan on continuing it, which is good news. Nonetheless, I think it's super interesting, definitely worth chucking in a wish list. Hopefully they can get a public-facing demo up for Next Fest and launch a successful Kickstarter. And I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on it myself. I love Path of Exile-inspired games, I love roguelikes, and I love games that do something unique and super interesting like this. So that was To Kill a God, and I hope you enjoyed this extensive first look at the little vertical slice here. That's it for now, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.